sorry I've been gone for so long, but I'm back now, and sorry for jump scaring anyone who hasn't seen my face, because I haven't shown it on this YouTube channel ever. Um, I promise I'll get some more videos out soon, which I'll explain later. But for now, I just want to talk about my record collection, because that's what I've been wasting all my time and money on for the past about 2 years. I know it's been 3 years since I've been consistently uploading videos, but I have better shit to be doing right now. I forgot to bring my mic with me. So we're not off to a great start here, because the first one I have on the list is Arctic Monkeys AM. I say it's not off to a great start because I have no idea why I bought this, other than the fact that it was like $12 on sale on Amazon when I got it. Like, you got your singles, Do I Want to Know, fucking Why'd You Let Call Me When You're High, the latter of which I've only liked when I was like 18, and since then it's not very good. I can't name any other songs off this thing, despite the fact that I own it and I've listened to it multiple times. Would not recommend it. Even worse on the next one, AJR, The Click Deluxe. This album is fucking terrible if you've never heard of it, and if you have, you know that it's terrible. I don't really have anything to say about it was somewhat positive, because I hate everything about it. Don't like any of the songs. You may be asking, if you hate it so much, then why did you buy it? You're gonna see now and in the future that I really like buying things that I hate. This is my excuse to talk about the Barbie movie. Ever since those set leaks from 2 years ago leaked, the pictures of Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling in the Western skating outfits, I have been following this movie religiously. I was so hyped for it when it was coming out. I thought it looked so goofy and so dumb, right up my alley. Until I saw it, and I was stricken with existential dread, as everyone was. But yeah, the movie's great. I bought this because of how much I loved it. But this is the only one in my collection that I've kept sealed. Not because I really care about keeping anything sealed. I think that is for pussies. But the only song on here I really care about is I'm Just Ken, obviously. And I can't really justify opening this thing to listen to one song. Okay, we finally have something good. The Beach Boys' Smile. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about this one because I have a video coming out about it soon. Okay, finally something good. The Beach Boys' Smile. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about this one because I have a video about it coming out soon. I don't know how soon is, but it's coming. But lowdown will be, this album never really released. This is a compilation of studio recordings from 1966 and 1967, mirroring Brian Wilson Presents Smile that came out about 7 years before this. That is the technically finished version of the album, but it's not a Beach Boys album, so this was justified in coming out, I think. That's all I'm going to say about it for now. Next one. So next up is the Bikini Kill albums I have. I used to be really into this band. I wouldn't say they were ever my favorite, but they were damn close. And this is the one I cherish most, the singles. Because all the best songs are on it. You know, you got your fucking Rebel Girl. The superior version of Rebel Girl, I will say. The album version is not as good because, one, it sounds like shit. It's a punk album, I guess it's supposed to sound like shit. But you get the point. I like fucking a classic. Strawberry Julius is probably my favorite on this thing. Yeah, it's just like it's just fun. You got your social commentary that you would expect from a feminist punk band of their status. I don't really have anything else to say about it. It's just like, it's Bikini Kill, what did you expect? And in that same token, I actually have all of their albums. I don't know what, they're not in order, it's supposed to be, but Pussy Whipped is probably their most popular. I can't really say why, but when you hear of Bikini Kill, people always cite, oh, Pussy Whipped is such a classic. I don't think it's their best album. Also not their best album is Reject All American. Probably not a play on All American Rejects, considering they weren't relevant for probably 7 years until after this came out. But I can't really remember any of the songs in this thing that I actually care about. It's definitely my least favorite of their catalog. It's still good. It's still Bikini Kill, but It's just kind of forgettable. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the second one. I really wish they did a double pack of this one and Revolution Girl Style Now, like they did on CD for vinyl. Clearly they didn't because I don't have it. This one's probably my favorite complete album because White Boy, banger. This is not a test, banger. Everything on here is amazing except for the slam poetry. I busted in your Chevy window. Not good. Uh, well, it's just not what I would want on a punk album. Not that there's anything wrong with social commentary on a punk album, and you'd expect that, but it's not a fucking song. Then the debut, Revolution Girl Style Now. The second best one, I think. Um, you've heard it before. Everyone's heard it before. It's a classic. I accidentally knocked over my camera. I hope I got it back in the right place. Whatever. I have both of Billy Cobb's Zerwy albums, 1 and 2. Yes, I'll talk about them in order. Zerwy 1 is very short. It's a 4-song EP. I think it's like less than 15 minutes long, but not that I really remember very well because I don't pay attention to the exact duration of many albums like this. But it's very short. 4 songs: The Shell Shack, She Doesn't Love Me, 1955, Dumb Song for Virgins to Cry To. I mean, there was a big back and forth on Rate Your Music when this thing first came out about whether it was amazing or whether it was shit. Because Billy Cobb, the artist behind it, he made it in reaction to the most recent Weezer albums that came out at the time. Black Album, Teal Album, Pacific Daydream, which he hated. I'll get to that later. But 2 of the songs on here are absolute classics. I think they're amazing. Shell Shack in 1955, Leading Towards the Shell Shack is my favorite. Really, I mean, they're amazing, almost perfect. But the other 2 are just kind of boring. I don't really care for them. In that same line, Zerwy Part 2 has the same problem, but amplified. You got The Bargain Mart and Ludo and Hoggle. Those 2 songs are 10 out of 10. Love everything about them. Then everything else on here, except for maybe Blockbuster Video, I can't really get behind because it's just kind of lifeless. I know Billy himself said he'd like to remix a lot of the songs because he also thinks that a lot of them came out pretty flat. And I'd be down for that, but for now this one is... I would say it's better than Zerwy 1 just because it's longer, adds more substance to it, but they're pretty neck and neck in quality. This is the only Blink album I own, unfortunately. I would consider it my biggest guilty pleasure album ever. Because most Blink fans will agree that this is the worst one. Personally, I think 9 is worse, but this album is not incredible. I grew up listening to this thing when I was probably 15, 16. I would listen to the full album stream on YouTube because I didn't feel like streaming it on Spotify, I guess. I had Spotify at the time, I don't know why I didn't do it. But I listened to this thing over and over and over again, and I just have a lot of very good memories with it. Obviously, I think almost everything they've made is better, but I just don't have the same connection to it, other than Enema, of course. I want to buy Enema. I don't know why I don't have it yet, because it is better than this. I like it more than this, but I don't know. This is like my album. If you're mentally ill, you're going to love this next part. I have all 6 parts of Everywhere at the End of Time. 1, 2, 3... 4, 5, 6. I guess I'm going to talk about the entire project as a whole, because what else am I going to do? It's very good. Everything everyone's already said about it, I agree with. I don't know if it's justified buying the whole thing on vinyl, if you're just like a casual fan of it, which I really am. The only part that I really come back to listen to a lot is Stage 2. Because I really like the atmosphere of it. It's very sad, it very well demonstrates the entire progression of the album in one stage. If you don't know what Everywhere at the End of Time is, I guess you're not chronically online enough, but definitely go check it out. It's an experience that I don't want to spoil for you. Next up on the list is remember when I said I really like buying things I hate? Well, here's Mori Calliope's two most recent albums, Jigoku 6 and Cinderella. Incredible names, truly. I also have her figure right here behind me. Can't show too much of that. But I have a strange obsession with this woman. I'm not going to get too much into it here because it would take up a vast majority of this video if I were to get into how much feelings I have towards this person, but this album is funny because a lot of people nowadays look back on it pretty poorly. Very cheesy, they say. Very primitive intro to scene music, but I don't care. I love this thing. Bring Me to Life. Everyone knows that song. It's a fucking classic. Going Under, probably better than that one. 10 out of 10, bro. If you've never listened to this entire thing, I would definitely recommend doing that because it's the only Evanescence album. So this is a tough subject for me, Green Day that is, because this is probably the band that I've grown out of the most. Similarly to what I said about Blink, I used to like stream their full albums on YouTube a lot. This one is the Insomniac 25th anniversary. I still do like a lot of their 90s stuff, but I just don't listen to it very often. I guess I'll have more to say about it in the next one. But for this one, it holds up. I like Extinct Breath. It's basically just like Diet Dookie, which isn't really a bad thing because everyone likes Dookie. I plan to buy the big box set for 30th anniversary coming in sometime soon. But yeah, Insomniac, pretty good. Now this is some bullshit. American Idiot is the album that I've grown out of the most. So back when I was 16, I was really heavily into my pop punk phase. Green Day, MCR, Blink, all my favorite bands. Green Day was probably the one that I was into the most. I listened to all of their music, including this and everything that came after it. I even defended Father of All a little bit when that came out, but this album has not aged well. It is probably the most overrated album of all time, overhyped, whatever you want to call it. First 3 songs in this thing are amazing. American Idiot, catchy as shit, everyone knows it. Jesus Suburbia is legit 10 out of 10. Nothing bad to say about that. Same thing goes for Holiday as American Idiot. It's catchy as shit. It's classic. From there on, I have a lot of struggles finishing the thing because it varies wildly between qualities and positive qualities, that is, in the songs. Boulevard of Broken Dreams was very overplayed on the radio when I was a kid. I wouldn't say it's a bad song, it's just that it doesn't take a lot of risks. It's a very meandering rock ballad. It doesn't really have a lot of qualities to call its own. Anything that's on that song is mirrored and done 10 times better in an album released 10 years earlier. Are We the Waiting? Boring as shit. Nothing good to say about that song, really. Saint Jimmy, I think is good. It's a fun punk song. But they did the same thing 10 years later on Revolution Radio with Bang Bang. That song's better. Give Me Novocaine, boring, don't like it. She's a Rebel, it's a very flaccid pop punk song. I wouldn't really call this a pop punk album. It's more like alt rock, arena rock, whatever you want to call that. Extraordinary Girl, also not very good. The heavy percussion doesn't really build the groove that I think it's trying to. It's not catchy at all, really. Letterbomb as a classic. I don't have anything bad to say about Letterbomb, except for like the chanting at the beginning. It's I could do without it. Wake Me Up When September Ends is like the same thing as I said about Boulevard music-wise, I do very much appreciate the sentiment behind the track. It's very heartfelt, very sincere from Billy Joe Armstrong. Though I don't really know why it's on this album, considering that it doesn't contribute to the concept, which I'll get to in a second. Homecoming is like Jesus of Suburbia, but worse. It's just as long, but it just doesn't have the same impact that song had. Wouldn't call it bad. It's just why do it twice when you did it perfectly the first time? And then What's Your Name? Great closer. Like that song a lot. As for the concept of American Idiot, the story makes no goddamn sense. Well, it makes sense. It's just that, why are you telling me this? It's about a guy who is fed up with this country, fed up with everyone around him. He doesn't want to be an American idiot, so he moves out of town to go prove himself to the world. Then he moves out of whatever bum shit city that he was in, and then he's like, wow, this sucks. Meets some guy named Jimmy who teaches him how to make things not suck with drugs. Does a lot of drugs, gets a girlfriend. Girlfriend doesn't like that he does drugs, breaks up with him, then he's sad. That's the fucking story. People treat this thing like the band's magnum opus. Redefined rock at the time. It's all nostalgia. I really don't think it's aged very well. I can appreciate how popular it was at the time, but it's just, there's so much better you can listen to in terms of concept albums, in terms of pop punk albums, in terms of alt rock albums, even at the time, even from this band. Everything they've done earlier, except for like Warning, I would say is better than this. Even like 37 Smooth, Kerplunk. It's fine. I would call it like a 5 or a 6 out of 10. The Beecher album. It doesn't deserve the worship it gets. So finally, next up, I have every Grimes album, starting with the two lo-fi ones, the indie ones, Guidey Prime's Halifaxa. They're classics. Not everyone knows them. I'm not gonna say that this time, but they're very unique. A lot of Grimes fans from back in the day, when they listen to the modern stuff, they complain that the charm she had back then, the appeal that she drew in with shit like World Princess, is probably the best song from this era. It's very absent in the later stuff. I'm not gonna say I prefer this stuff. It's just very different. So a lot of those earlier fans complain that they want more of this, and I can see the appeal of it. It's very ethereal, very atmospheric. Then I have the 3 modern Grimes albums: Visions, Art Angels, Misanthropocene. I really wish they did a deluxe print of Misanthropocene because the art in that one's a lot better, and you get We Appreciate Power. I'll talk about that again later. But out of these 3, Art Angels is definitely my favorite. I know a lot of people prefer Visions, but if you prefer the more indie sound, then Visions is the way to go. I prefer the more like pop, art pop, I guess, direction that she took later on. But I'll defend Misanthropocene. A lot of people hate this album. Well, not hate, it's just they find it very disappointing compared to what she did before. I'm not gonna say it's as good as Visions and Art Angels, but it's a good album. I would call it like a high 6 to a mid 7. I think it's just as like ethereal and atmospheric as the indie albums, but it's more high fidelity, more produced. It's a good middle ground between the two, in that, like the opposite way of Visions, where that one is more lo-fi but more accessible to a pop audience, where this one is like very dark, very dreary. This is the album I can blame for starting me on this shit. Back when, I want to say 2021, I was collecting CDs. And Hailstorm was my favorite band at the time. This is the 10th anniversary reissue of their debut album, self-titled. But you couldn't buy this on CD. It was only printed on vinyl. So I was like, fuck, I love this thing. It's got the main album on it from 2010, 2009, I forget which year. And like 12 bonus tracks that are all demos from that era. And those 12 like demos are amazing. I love all of them. So I really wanted it on CD, but I couldn't do that. I was like, fuck it, I'll buy it on vinyl. And I guess I can start like casually collecting records on the side. Later on, I did end up selling all my CDs to fund this, but I still really love this album. Hailstorm, they're cheesy, they're goofy, they're like kind of shallow, hard rock, heavy metal stuff, but I have a very soft spot for them. Um, if you haven't listened to this thing, I can't like say, oh, it's amazing. Go listen to it now. But if you like Lizzie Hill's voice, if you like fun guitar riffs, give it a try at least. I do recommend it. Next up is an interesting one. Also Hailstorm. I have all their albums except for Reanimate 3. But this is Reanimate 1 and 2. 2 on this side, 1 on this side. This is one of the most valuable records I own. It's very expensive nowadays, but I didn't pay too much for it, like $100 I think. They're all covers, the Reanimate series. One has I can't remember the track list of all of them, but I do prefer 1 to 2. I think it has a better variety of stuff that I want. I don't really want Hailstorm covering Daft Punk. I appreciate the experimentation with Bad Romance because that sounds amazing. But Daft Punk, I don't listen to them for funky beats. I would say that. Also, the Reanimate 1 cover is like one of my favorite album covers of all time. It's amazing. Next up, Hailstorm's second album, The Strange Case of Hailstorm. Probably their best one. I don't want to say for sure because if we're counting Back from the Dead Deluxe, then obviously that's the best one because it has like so many extra songs, and I think the bass album is just as good as this one. But Love Bites is one of the best metal singles of all time. I'll defend that song to the grave. I Miss the Misery, fucking everything on this album is amazing. There's no bad songs at all. Not even any boring ones. Even the ballads are good, which are kind of hit and miss usually. I'll get to that on the next one. But this one I can very much recommend to anybody. It's a classic. Go listen to it now. This is their third album, Into the Wildlife. It's not the best one. It's probably the worst one, but I have a very, very much soft spot for it. It's probably my second favorite album next to the debut. Can't really say why, I just have like a weird connection to it. I love all the bonus tracks, or the 2, I guess, but half of this album is amazing. Like, you got shit like Amen, Mayhem, Apocalyptic, I Like It Heavy. Then you got like the shitter songs, like Dear Daughter, Bad Girls World, what else is on here? New Modern Love. Those are all just like a sea of nothing in the middle of this album, which really drags it down. I would say it's still a good album. I wouldn't call any of those songs like terrible. They're just very boring. If you like the other stuff, give it a try because it's pretty weird and different by their standards. Very synth heavy, very much like comparatively lo-fi, which I think is interesting. But this one's also pretty expensive. I didn't pay this too much for this one at all. I got it pretty cheap at like $80. But last time I checked, they were going for about 200. So look out for that. Vicious is their fourth album. I used to like it a lot more than I do now. Nowadays, I'd probably call it my least favorite. You got some really good songs on it, like Uncomfortable or The Silence. Those are my 2 favorites by far. But something interesting about this that I fucking hate is that it has 4 bonus tracks. Now That You're Gone, Nobody, Golden, and Letters. And they're all like really good. Probably my favorite songs on the album. Well, there'd be some of them. I don't think I like them any more than the 2 I mentioned before. But Letters specifically is amazing. I would kill a man to have that on streaming. But I've tried to upload the song multiple times. I can't. Every time it just gets immediately taken down. I don't know why they're so protective of these songs, considering this album came out in, 2017? They're more than 5 years old. Just let people listen to them. They're amazing. It's frustrating. This album is good. It's better than Into the Wildlife. Just don't like it as much. And finally from them, this is their most recent album, Back from the Dead. Kind of sad. Whenever I go to record stores, I see this thing like rotting in the H area because nobody buys this thing. But I think it's like really good. Probably objectively speaking, their best album. Back from the Dead is one of their best singles, if not their best. It's not my favorite. I still prefer Love Bites and a couple of the others. But as a full album, it's very strong. Just like looking at the track list, Wicked Ways just as good as Back from the Dead. The Steeple is pretty goofy by their standards even, but I still like it. You have to accept the goofiness from a band like this in order to really appreciate it, which I know will turn a lot of people off, but you're listening to a hard rock heavy metal in 2023. What did you expect? I don't think the side B is as strong as side 1. Side A is probably like an 8 or a 9 out of 10. It's incredible. Side B is like a 6 or a 7, which it averages out to a 7 or 8. It's still a very good album. And it's not perfect, but what is right here. Much the opposite of their debut, the deluxe version of this album only released on CD and not on vinyl. Also would kill a man to get that on vinyl, but that adds 6 extra songs. Alien sounds exactly like their debut album, which I really love because that one's my favorite. Yeah, listen to this. It's amazing. Don't get too excited now. I know this thing was a white whale for a lot of collectors back in the day. Intro Bonito from Caro Caro Bonito. It was very expensive for quite a long time because it was their debut mixtape. Not very many copies were printed, but this is the reissue from pretty recently. I know the original one goes for near thousands of dollars, but this is definitely my least favorite of the Caro Caro Bonito stuff. Not that it's bad. None of their stuff is bad. It's just that it's very mismatched. I mean, what you would expect from a mixtape, I guess, but their sound very much changed between this and their first album, which I'll get to in now. Bonito Generation. This is one of the best pop albums of all time. I don't care what anyone fucking says. This is a stone cold classic. Everything that everyone's already said about it, I basically agree with. It's just fun. A lot of the stuff that they do later on, which I'll get to in a second, puts this into stark contrast because of how like upbeat and fun this one is. Waking Up, amazing opener. Heard a song probably even better. Next up, Graduation. It's not my favorite as a single. I would have preferred Waking Up or Heard a Song over it, but it's still amazing. Can't really say anything bad about this album. It's a classic. Damn near a 10 out of 10. Time and Place. I didn't get into this album as much as I did Generation until recently because it sounds very different. It's a lot more lo-fi. It's got like it's got a grit to it, which takes a little adjusting to if you got into the band with Generation like I did. But it's like depressing. Their albums follow like a pretty loose string in ages, I guess. Intro Bonito is about the joy of childhood. Bonito Generation is about the your graduation from like being a teenager to the joys of being a young adult. And then this one is the awkward period in your life where everything sucks and you have no idea what's going on. I want to say Dear Future Self is probably the most depressing thing they've ever made. It just fills me with despair every time I listen to it. Favorite song on here is probably Sometimes, because it's the only one that doesn't make me want to go to bed and never come out. Watch out, we got another expensive one here. Lady Gaga, The Fan Monster. I'm a big Gaga fan, and this is probably, objectively speaking, her best work. It's an EP in name only. It's like half an hour long. I would call that an album, but it's an EP. It's an addendum to her debut album, The Fame. You know, The Fame Monster. It's very self-explanatory. But this is also one of the best pop albums of all time. If you haven't listened to the full thing, definitely recommend doing so. It's a stone cold slammer from beginning to end. It comes with the Fame Monster and the Fame, both on 1 disc and then 2 discs respectively. Which makes it weird because, yeah, I bought that after I already bought the Fame by itself, because that is going for like almost $300 right now. I got it for $175, I think. So I was reluctant to do that. I already had this. I don't know what I'm gonna do with this duplicate copy. I'll probably just like give it to my girlfriend or something. But I got 2, I guess. Recently, I bought the 10th anniversary reissue of Born This Way. I don't think it's as good as Fame Monster, like at all. It doesn't have any of the same like classic qualities as that one has. The singles just aren't as strong. The deep cuts aren't as strong. It's still a very good album, but it didn't change the world like Fame Monster did. And then since this was the anniversary reissue, I also got the bonus disc of all the remixes and features. Don't listen to it. It's not incredible. It's not terrible. It's just like art pop. Very interesting. If you don't know the story behind this album, definitely recommend seeking that out. I can give an abridged version here. This was conceived of after Gaga had a severe hip injury and was unable to tour for quite a while. She ended up going very avant-garde, very abstract with this one, even more so than the other ones, even though those were very artsy, very non-mainstream, I'll say. In this one, just look at the cover, man. Nobody expected this at the time, and I think because of that, they weren't really ready for the sound that they got with it. Very EDM focused, very electronic, even more so than the other 2 electropop albums somehow. But I think this thing's amazing. I like it more than Born This Way, and not as much as Fame Monster, but it's damn close. The GUI trilogy that was in the music video, all classics. If you haven't seen that music video, it's amazing. Go watch it now. I think my favorite deep cut is probably Donatella because it's fucking stupid. And it's kind of weird that Applause is the closer, considering that it would fit much better at the beginning of the album, considering it's a progression from how she sees Fame and herself, the relationship between the 2. And then Applause being at the very end just kind of shits on that moral. But just whatever. Joanne. This is my favorite Gaga album. I can't really explain why, other than the sound of it is very unique, for her at least. Very folk-inspired, very country-inspired. This is like my 4th or 5th most streamed album, for some reason. Can't really explain that, but this thing's amazing. A lot of people never really gave it a try because of how different it is for her. If you haven't, definitely go listen to it. It takes a minute to grab you, but once it does, you'll get it. You'll get it. Could have expected this when you saw Bikini Kill earlier, but here's La Tigra. That's how you pronounce it, I think. Really hate this because when I got it on eBay, this is when I first started collecting. The side spine was split. I did not realize how lenient eBay is with returns for stuff like that, so I didn't bother returning it for a new one. Kind of sucks, but this album's a classic. Everyone knows that. Decepticon's one of the best singles of all time. And everything else is like very abstract, very avant-garde for like dance punk, which I guess is what this album is. If you haven't listened to the whole thing and you only listen to Decepticon, give it a shot. I really wish I owned the Glow Part 2 to go along with this, because these are 2 of Phil's best albums, I think. I guess most people would say the same thing. But this is like the saddest thing ever made. A Crow Look at Me by Mount Eerie. If you haven't listened to it, don't. Then I have all of the MCR albums. Bullets, 3 Cheers, Black Parade, Danger Days. As I said earlier, I had a really deep pop punk phase for about a year. MCR, I was not as into as Green Day at the time. Nowadays, I am much more into than Green Day. I think their music holds up a lot better. Green Day's song structure is a lot more simple, and MCR's it sticks with me as I've gotten older. Bullets and Black Parade are like neck and neck for my favorite albums from them. Three Cheers is objectively speaking just as good, but it just doesn't grab me the same way those two do. Danger Days is goofy as shit. Uh, it's not great, but Bulletproof Heart, it's a classic. People have talked about this album so much. I really don't have anything interesting to say about it. Yeah, you've heard all of the best songs from it. You've heard most of the songs from it, I can guarantee. It's fucking Nevermind. Finally, I can get back to some dumb shit. So, I remember earlier I mentioned Blink-182 California being one of my biggest guilty pleasure albums. This is the second biggest. Pale Waves, My Mind Makes Noises. I remember reading a great music review of their latest album that came out, I think this year. It was this person who had reviewed their first two albums, this one and the one I'm going to talk about next. And they reviewed them very positively, like high 90s. And then for the newest album, they were like, "This is the tackiest shit I've heard all year." I guess as they got older, they didn't appreciate it the same way they did when they were younger. Really, I should have felt the same way about this thing since I last heard it, but yeah, I still like it. It's very tacky. It's very goofy, but it scratches an itch that few other things can. Speaking of a few other things, this isn't it. I was kind of disappointed in this album. This is their second one from Pale Waves. Because whereas that one was a big 1975 ripoff, this is a big Avril Lavigne ripoff. Objectively speaking, it's probably better than Mind Makes Noises, but You Don't Own Me is like the only song I can even remember from this thing other than Change, which is number 2. They're definitely I have such complicated feelings about this album because on one hand, all the songs are like catchy. It's still fun, but like I feel a similar sense of guilt listening to it as I do from like a Melanie Martinez. You might have noticed I don't own any of her albums. That's for a good reason, but I'd just rather listen to basically anything else at this point in my life. Next up, I have all of the Paramore albums, except for the newest one, that is. All We Know Is Falling, Riot, Brand New Eyes, Self-Titled, After Laughter. I think After Laughter is funny because it's very easy to see in people's record collections because of how like bold the spine is, but Paramore holds up a lot better than the other pop punk stuff I was listening to at the time. Out of all of these, I think the one that stuck with me the most is All We Know Is Falling, because that one leans very heavy on the emo influence. I don't know if I would call it a pure emo album. I think it still leans more pop punk, but the influence is very strong, and that draws me to it nowadays at least. Objectively speaking, I would say Self-Titled is probably their best. That one's my second favorite, I think. Because shit like Part 2 and Future are so out of left field for them, even at this point in time. It's like an experience to listen to. Definitely recommend listening to the full album if you haven't done that, because I know Still Into You is one of their most popular songs. Paramore hasn't really done anything bad. Can't complain about any of their music. It's all good. But I haven't listened to the new album yet. Maybe that's bad. Alright, now we got Big Kahuna. One of my favorite artists in recent times has been Poppy. You might have known her from very trendy YouTube videos back in like 2015 or so. But she makes music, and it's very good. The only problem is that it's very expensive too, because of how limited the earlier stuff was printed. This one isn't as bad. Poppy.computer, the debut album, not counting Bubble Bath, that is. I would say it's not her weakest. It's just that it doesn't have any of the hard-hitting songs that basically any other album she's released has. Even my least favorite from her does have better songs than on this one, but it doesn't have as low lows, I'll just say that. Man, this is Am I a Girl? Don't buy it. It's ridiculously expensive. I would say market price is like $500 used, and then like $800 sealed. I got mine sealed for $300 a few months ago, which is a very good deal, but still don't do it. This thing is never getting reprinted, which is the reason I was so willing to pay so much for it. Not just because of the whole Titanic Sinclair breakup thing, but also because of the Grimes feature, the Diplo. It's not aged well in the meta aspects, but I would say it's her second best album. It's very good. It has some of her best pop songs. It introduced the metal that she would go on to do, and the next album. Really don't have anything bad to say about it other than it opens kind of slow. Like, if you cut off In a Minute, Fashion After All Iconic, and added some of the cut songs, say, Do You Miss Me? I think it could have been like a 10 out of 10. That's how good some of those other songs are. But, very good. Highly recommended. This is I Disagree More. I have the standard cover too on my wall over there. I just hung it up because I don't really have a use for duplicates like that. But this is definitely your best album. Concrete is easily my favorite Poppy song because it combines like it has so many moving parts. It has the chugging metal guitars, it has the screaming, it has the blaring sirens, and it has like the bridge is these huge robust vocal harmonies that are like, why did you put this on the song? It's amazing, but it's like so weird. I love it. I realize most people aren't going to get the same effect from it as I do. Most people aren't going to love it as much as I do, but it's one of my favorite albums ever. And this is the deluxe version. It has 4 bonus songs. Chaos, 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 If It Bleeds, Bleep Bloop, and Don't Ask. Those are all great songs. I can see why they weren't on the main album. They don't really fit too well, especially Bleep Bloop. That was probably my favorite. Yeah, amazing album, and it's finally getting repressed. You can actually easily get it now. This album fucking sucks. A Very Poppy Christmas is interesting because it really did make a big splash when it came out, and basically everyone disregards it as of now. But I really like it. It has a very spacey, very ethereal, very forlorn atmosphere that you wouldn't really expect from a Christmas album. It's not her best work because it's all covers, but all of her covers are good, which is really weird to think about. Because I guess she did start out doing covers, so maybe not. But if you haven't listened to it, give it a shot at least. I really like it. I can't say most other people are gonna like it as much as I do, but if you like Christmas music, you're probably gonna like it. Flux. This marks a turning point because this was her first major album without the help of Titanic Sinclair, which was her major co-conspirator for the entire project up until that point. A lot of people don't like this album because it doesn't make as much of a splash. It's not as avant-garde as anything else she's made, but I really like it. It's like her trying grunge or 90s alt rock, which I have a soft spot for. Am I gonna say it's her best work? No. is it really even close to I Disagree in how groundbreaking that was? No. But I love this album, it's great. Stagger. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is Flux outtakes. It's only 4 tracks, which is unfortunate, considering that A Summer Breeze is like her best song ever, and it'll probably be lost to the sands of time. I don't have any faith in predicting anything that woman will do anymore because of Zig. This album fucking sucks. I was so excited for it. I loved the first 3 singles, first of 4, that she released for it. Church Outfit, Knockoff, Motorbike, and then Hard. Did not like Hard. I thought it was a weird step to take after Motorbike. This is like a return to pop from all the rock stuff she was doing before, which I don't have a problem with. Her pop stuff was great, but what's the point of experimenting if you're just gonna make it bad? Most of the songs on here are just boring. As I said before, I really like Church Outfit, really like Knockoff, really like Motorbike. My favorite deep cut is probably Flicker, which is a good song, but it's not anything super special. It doesn't even come close to anything from I Disagree or Flux, but everything else is just like, what is this really the best material they had? I can't imagine it was, because she said she had written like 30, 40 songs during these sessions, and those outtakes are going to be going towards Zag, which is going to be her next release, which I don't have a lot of faith in, because like, you put your best foot forward, and this is your best foot, then what are you even doing, man? Okay, computer. I am not a Radiohead fan at all. I just thought it'd be funny if I bought this while I was also buying those other Gaga albums from earlier at the record store. And it was funny. The cashier gave me a funny look, but I like Karma Police, but Radiohead has never really clicked with me. So you might recall earlier I had said Hailstorm was my favorite album, my favorite band, that is, for a long time. And when you are a big fan of them, you get recommended a lot of other bands in that sphere. Big one being The Pretty Reckless, fronted by Taylor Momsen of Gossip Girls fame. I got their first 3 albums. Well, not first 3, because their first album was never pressed. Do that eventually. But Going to Hell, Who Are You Selling For, Death by Rock and Roll. Going to Hell and Death by Rock and Roll I don't have a lot to say about. They're pretty generic rock albums. If it was anybody but Taylor singing, it would be a flash in the pan. Nobody would really care about this band. But Who Are You Selling For is one of my favorite albums ever. It's such a weird curveball after Going to Hell, because you got shit like the title track Going to Hell, but also Heaven Knows, which were both like big radio hits. And then you pivot to blues rock. It's bizarre, but you can tell they got a lot of influence from southern rock, from blues, and it comes through very heavily in that album. I can't in good conscience recommend it to many people because it's pretty niche nowadays, at least. Give it a shot if you're interested, but it's very personal to me. I love that album. Red Hot Chili Peppers. This band is the reason I am into music nowadays. Before like my sophomore year of high school, all I listened to was like J-pop and Vocaloid. This band is what got me into listening to music in general. Stadium Arcadium isn't their best album, not by a long shot. I would say Californication is a lot better. Blood Sugar Sex Magik is a lot better, but it's got some good songs on it. It's got Hump the Bump, it's got Snow, it's got Wet Sand. I didn't need to be a double album. It's very bloated. I would cut, exactly half the album. It could have made a very good single album, but why did they do this? It seems very unnecessary. This is the other two. This is the other two of the two soundtracks that I own. Scott Pilgrim. Basically, everyone who collects records nowadays should have this thing. And it's a classic. Neither this band or this album gets enough recognition. Sleater-Kinney, The Woods. This is one of my favorite albums ever. It's I think it's the fourth or fifth album from a Riot Grrrl band, Sleater-Kinney. But this is not a punk album, like, at all. I wouldn't even know, like, how to describe the genre. It's obviously rock, but it's very heavily influenced by, like, 70s stuff, kind of. It has a very unique sound that takes a lot of getting used to, but this thing's a 10 out of 10, man. A lot of people haven't listened to it, but you do it once, man, for the kids. We got Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. I am not the biggest Smashing Pumpkins fan. Billy Corgan's a fucking goofball, but this album is a stone cold classic. Everyone knows the singles, Bullet with Butterfly Wings, 1979. And yeah, everyone has said everything that needs to be said about this album. Same thing with, like, what I said about Nevermind. Can't add too much to it. It's a classic. This is another band that is very personal to me. I don't know if I would call their stuff guilty pleasures, because I think it still kind of holds up. Australian pop punk band, Stand Atlantic. This is their first album. Well, it's technically not their first album. There's no place apart. But Skinny Dipping is the first thing you can listen to on streaming, at least. It's, of all of the stuff they put out, it's their most indie-influenced stuff, which I think is interesting. It's got some of their best singles, Lavender Bones. Lost My Cool is probably the best song they've ever made. But after that, the deep cuts don't really match the same energy that those two singles did. They're both good, but I feel like something is lacking from the songwriting, at least. There's a lot of crowd vocals, which I guess is a product of the time. It's not as good as what came after it, but also in some places it's better. Second release, EP, Sidewinder. This thing is good. There's no bad songs on it. None of the boring stuff from Skinny Dipping either. It's a very solid collection of pop punk songs. But I think this one leans more indie than even Skinny Dipping did. Something like Push or a Sidewinder. Very much what I would want to hear more from this band. Not what they're doing nowadays, which I'll get to in a second. Pink Elephant. This is their second full length album. Probably their best. I think it's very unique to them, but in some ways it also sacrifices some of that uniqueness for more trendy sounds at the time, which will be a recurring theme in that you got some amazing songs like that Blurry, Evil Eye Go. Basically everything on here is amazing. Hate Me Sometimes is one of the best pop punk songs ever made. But you also got shit like Jurassic Park or Wavelength, which just feel like this album is pretty overproduced, very electronic, which is weird coming off of both Skinny Dipping and Sidewinder. It's a welcome change here because it's the first time doing it. But on here, it's a little less forgivable. Fear, I have a lot of complicated feelings about, because in some ways it's their best album. In a lot of ways it's their worst. It again is even more overproduced than the last one. It has a lot of features that it really doesn't need. Like, I don't even know who Royal and the Serpent is, but they've been featured on like half of all pop punk albums in the past 5 years. no clue who Tom the Mailman is. Why the hell was he on Dumb? It's one of their best songs ever, and that guy's features, it's not bad, but like, why? You ruined the song by like slowing down the flow of it so much. Very glad that this physical release gets rid of the features. Um, Interestingly, they talk about how much they've sold out in the song Hair Out. Hits very close to home. But a lot of the deep cuts are a lot better than the singles. Not only because there's no features, but also because it returns to the more simple sound that I wanted. Sounds like a blend between Big Elephant and Skinny Dipping, which I really like. But then like the not the closer, the one before the closer, Cabin Fever. What the hell were they thinking? It's I don't want to call it rap rock, but it leans very heavily on that genre, which really didn't need to happen. Um, is it a good album? Yes. Is it a flawed album? Yes. Would I burn it if we were talking about it when it first came out? Probably. Folks, is this it? It's a classic. I was debating whether to get this one or the ass cover. I prefer this one. I like fractals. Fractals are cool. Shapes are cool. Um, Everyone knows this album. It's a classic. The singles, they scratch that garage rock hit that you would want when you're listening to the Strokes. I don't think anything on here is as good as Reptilia, but everything on here is better than everything else on Room on Fire. This is my favorite pop punk album. Sum 41 does this look infected. The singles on it, you got the Hell song, you got Over My Head, Better Off Dead, you got Still Waiting, all 10 out of 10s. I love them. And the deep cuts are, they're a lot heavier than what you would expect from something like a Blink or a Green Day. I think they get a lot of influence from nu metal acts like a Linkin Park or a Limp Bizkit, and that sets them apart more than I would really expect from any other pop punk band. I'm not saying that's what makes me like them a lot more. It's just that combined with very good strong songwriting sets them apart a lot from your Green Days and your Blinks. Alright guys, we're in the home stretch. We got to the Weezer section. I have 3 copies of the Blue Album. This is the original master recording, but I also have a plain copy and the Target Blue copy. Yeah, everyone... This is like the standard version album. I'm not going to defend it from that too much, but it's a classic. Probably the best pop rock album of the 90s at least, maybe of all time. It's very relatable, and it invented like an entire sound that carried on through the 90s and a lot of the 2000s. Very influential album, very influential band. But what's more influential is my favorite album of all time, Pinkerton. I have the original master recording here and the deluxe edition here with 4 discs. It's hard to get anyone who isn't already into Weezer into Pinkerton. Very abrasive, not just sound-wise, but content-wise too. Nobody wants to hear the sexual frustrations of Rivers Cuomo. Neither did I when I first listened to it. It took me probably 4 or 5 listens for it to really click with me, but once it did, it was like, never going back. I love this album more than life itself. Favorite song's probably The Good Life, followed closely by A Tragic Girl. It's a 10. Everyone, and it's better than the Blue Album, which is important. Alright, for the rest of the Weezers, I'm gonna go pretty rapid fire because I'm also planning on making a video about these guys. They're like comprehensive history. Anyway, Green Album, very simple, very return to basics from Pinkerton, which I guess worked because of how much better it did commercially than that album did. It's good. It's better than Green, but also it's like more stale than Green, because I feel like where that album had a lot of identity and how breezy, how simple, how quick it was. This one's a lot more dragged out. It has like 3 or 4 more songs than it really needs. I do like the heavy metal guitarist that goes through basically the entire album. Just trim it down. It really needs it. Make Believe. This album gets a lot of defenders nowadays. I do not agree with that. I think this album is pretty bad. Not gonna say it's all bad. Perfect Situation and Haunt You Every Day are two of their best songs ever. But it also has Beverly Hills. It has We Are All on Drugs. It has My Best Friend. It really cancels out how any good feelings I really have towards it. The Red Album is similar, but not as bad. This is the deluxe version with 4 extra songs. A lot better than the standard edition, because that standard edition is like 5 amazing songs and 5 terrible songs. Because of that, it rounds out to a perfect 5. Not because it's mediocre, but because it's very polarizing. But 4 deluxe songs, they're all amazing. I think it's a very good album. The deluxe version, at least. Probably a 7. But if you're talking about the standard, you got a much longer conversation there. Funny album, Gratitude. This one is very expensive. Which is a shocker because not only is this album terrible, but it also sounds like shit on vinyl. Would not recommend buying it unless you're a fucking freak like me who wants to get all of them. I would defend it from the relentless amount of hate it gets, but I won't because it doesn't deserve it. Early though, I will defend. This album gets a lot of hate it does not deserve. I think it's pretty good. It has Memories, it has Ruling Me, it has Runaway, it has Hold On. All bangers. Even Where's My Sex. I even love that song. It's very shallow, very simple, like the Green album, but it has more of an identity than Green. It's like a high 6 or a low 7. This is some bullshit. It's a compilation album of some make-believe outtakes, some B-sides from the 2000s era. Most of it is not great. I will defend, though, Turning Up the Radio. It sounds fucking awesome. You Wait. This is the 2014 comeback album. Is it as good as Blue and Pinkerton? No. Is it as good as the best stuff that comes out after it? No. Is it good? Yes. The White Album. Everyone loves the White Album. The White Album is fucking great. It is as good as Blue and Pinkerton. Very summery, very fun, but it also has some dark moments, like Do You Want to Get High or Endless Bummer. Love those songs. I love everything on here. It's damn close to a 10 out of 10 if it's not already one. Pacific Daydream. I am a big apologist for this album. Not that it really deserves it, because it's another Red situation where half the songs in this thing are terrible. Half the songs of them are really good. A lot of people don't see the good songs though, and that's why I really care about it. The 3-song stretch from Weekend Woman to Sweet Mary is like peak Weezer. I love those songs so much, but they get overshadowed by shit like It Feels Like Summer, which is it's fucking terrible. I won't even try and defend that song, but give it a chance. Give it a chance. This is the worst Weezer album, but it has no scrubs on it, so it's okay. Black Album. It's like Make Believe, but with lower highs and higher lows. It's fine. Okay, Human. This album is very good. I do think it's kind of overhyped by the online community. It's not as good as Blue and Pinkerton or even White. Is it good? Yes. Is it better than Everything Will Be Alright in the end? Yes. But is it their best album or really even close to it? Not really. I really like the orchestration. I really like the production. It's just the songwriting isn't as good as what I want from the best of Weezer. This album's fucking stupid. I like it. It's good. But was it necessary? No. Now we're finally at the fucking end. I got all the seasons. Spring, summer, autumn, winter. So something a lot of people don't really know about Seasons is that it was originally supposed to be a concept album about religion, about existentialism, all the big facets of life. but after the planned Broadway show was canceled due to low ticket sales, they were like, fuck it. They just threw out the concept idea like midway through summer, and autumn and winter basically completely absent of it. I think it would be cool if it had been kept throughout, but ironically, the albums with the concept element in spring and summer, those are easily the two worst of the series. I think spring is good. I think summer is pretty bad, but autumn is fucking amazing. I love it. It's one of my favorite Weezer albums. Winter, it's also good. Not as good as autumn, but I Want a Dog is like top 10 Weezer songs. Everything everyone has said about autumn is pretty true. Not autumn, season as a whole. It's pretty true. It's very hit or miss, but the highs are incredibly high. Lows aren't too low. I would consider it one of their best projects as a whole. Even better if they had just like cut the fat. And that is everything. I promise I'll make some more videos soon enough. I don't think I'm gonna do this ever again because my mouth is dry as shit after talking for so long. And it's gonna take me hours and hours and hours to edit this. But you're gonna get a Smile video pretty soon. You're gonna get a Weezer video pretty soon. Fucking sit tight. Just be patient.